gifted me with that title because she's so always in her intuition, but she never allows herself to know that. And so when she asked me what I wanted to speak about, I was like, oh, I don't know, let me think about it. And I took too long for her. And so she told me, but I'm sure she picked it right out of, yeah, she pulled it right out of my field into her space, which is always great, because we do that all the time. We listen to people speaking, or we think of someone and then they call, or you hear chimes and you wonder where they're yeah, how appropriate. And sometimes we listen to those, inner knowings, and sometimes we listen to those what we call thoughts that just kind of pop into our head, and sometimes we don't. And oftentimes we hear it and don't actually act on it or say it or do something, and we run into a situation where we could have used that information. Can you hear me okay back there? Yeah? Okay. And that information is coming from somewhere, but who is the director and the listener of that information? But you, right? It may come from wherever, it doesn't matter where it comes from, but the one person who can hear it in the moment that it arrives is you. And so what if you chose to hear that message in every moment of your life? It doesn't matter when it is. It could be right before you go to bed, or right when you wake up in the morning, or while you're driving yourself to the store, or the grocery store, or even in the grocery store. Those little thoughts you think are random are not so much random. There's a reason why you're thinking about it or hearing it. And so that's so appropriate for what I've done thus far in my life. I'm only 45, but I feel like I've not aged for some reason, because I still feel like a kid inside, which is an anomaly to me, because I don't feel like I'll ever grow up, or that I ever make choices that are grown-up choices. But I found myself acknowledging just this year all of my capacities. I can hear spirit, I can see spirit, I can feel spirit, I can perceive it, I can see people's higher selves, what they look like, just by asking. I can perceive other entities that we don't see with our eyes in this reality. I can see, hear, feel, and know a lot of stuff. And my frustration has always been, why? Why? Why do I know all these things? Do I now have an obligation to share, to teach, to do anything with that? What's my purpose? I still, after having all these capacities, which many people, they'll go to a psychic to get information that is unknown seemingly unknown to the person, or they'll go to anything to get information about themselves. And really, all that information was inside all along. And all I had to do was ask a question, but instead it feels more comfortable to ask a friend or ask someone who does that for a living to tell me about myself. And that always felt so very frustrating, because sometimes the information felt good and sometimes it didn't feel so good. And even if I didn't know what it was, I was still unsure of it. And I started asking more and more questions of other people and getting more and more frustrated, because I wasn't sure what the truth was. How could you ever know what the truth is about you? What is my purpose? Why am I here? That seems to be everybody's never-ending story. The question you ask yourself when you're in that moment of emotional turmoil, why am I here? Why am I going through this? What does this mean to me? And what am I supposed to do with it? And I've got a lot of answers from a lot of different places, and where I found my most peaceful moments were when I was sitting alone. And I one day allowed myself to sit in that space of oneness, or aloneness, so to speak, long enough to meet the oneness of all, the creator of everything in my space, in my third eye, in my mind, in my beingness, and have a conversation. And I was gifted the ability to, it was more like a task is what I got. I was told that my first task was to love with God's heart, love with the creator heart. And I was thinking, what does that mean? Like, I had nothing else to say after that was told to me. I'm like, okay. So I had a million questions. Does that mean when I love somebody, they're gonna feel different? Or am I gonna feel different? Or do I have to think about loving with the creator heart as opposed to my own heart? What does this make this different? Do I have to think about loving you and hugging you? Will you feel different if I think with my creator heart as opposed to my heart? That was like an ongoing thing for me. I just really couldn't understand it until one day I realized that I am a creator. I am the creator in myself, channeling or being the spark of all that is. And so when I hug you, I'm not hugging you with my body heart. I'm hugging you with creative heart. I'm hugging you with the heart that came from all that is. I was like, wow, duh. Like, it seemed like such a, logical thing in the moment, but I spent months beating myself up thinking, how do I love with creator heart? How do I love with that heart? And to me, that spelled separateness. That's how I separated myself from all that is, from the oneness that we all are, is because I kept thinking that I was separate from all of you and everyone that lives and everyone that we can't see and everything on the planet, and that is just not so. That's why you can feel so much for someone else. They are part of you. You feel, when someone's sad and crying in front of you, you find yourself sad and crying. Pardon me, because you are them, they are you. We all come from the same spark. So if the creator here sparked all these sparks out and you all received one, what makes you different? A body, that's about it. Because inside of us remains all that is. We got the spark, we only needed one, and we all got one. And the difference is the skin around our bones and muscles that make us separate. And that's just something we perceive with our eyes. So in my journey, as I started to receive this, I started to understand that my seeming counterparts, which I didn't really appreciate in other people, were actually me too. Those were parts of me that I wasn't willing to receive. So if it were stubbornness or slowness, like all the things, you write down a list of things that that kind of irritate you a bit about what other people choose. I found that those things pardon me, were actually things that I judged about myself, in me. So I'll give you an example. I won't mention any names, but someone I know dearly chooses things in his world that are grandiose, are big and beautiful and masterful opportunities. And they get really, really close to him. And he's choosing it, and he's choosing it really well, and all of a sudden it shows up on the front door, and all he has to do is step into it, and he changes his mind. I don't think I'm gonna go there today. And I watch that big, huge choice that he created disappear in a second. I saw it. I saw him create it, I saw it show up, and then I saw him not take it. Now, in the moment, I didn't know why I wasn't choosing it, what was happening, but I really saw it. Boy, was I frustrated. I was so frustrated, I couldn't even stand myself. I was angry and upset at him for not choosing something that he created. And so what I realized is that I stood with my hand open, and I don't even know why or how, and I looked at that hand in my hand and I said, what is it about not choosing what you really want and what you're willing to create and bring it all the way to you and not choose? Who doesn't take opportunities? And so out from my mouth spouts, am I that? Am I? Do I not take opportunities? And I was like, wait a second. So I'm judging someone who doesn't take opportunities, but that someone is actually me, so I judge myself for not taking opportunities. And now I recognize that I actually do take opportunities. So this turns out to be a judgment of me. And you've all heard of the mirror exercise, where you see something and it's like that you spot it, you got it kind of thing. So you see the mirror and that happens to be you. That's what I was doing. I'm like, oh my goodness. I judge myself for not taking opportunities. I'm seeing it in someone else, and that's why it's bringing up an emotional response. And in that moment, I go, okay, I'm going to love that judgment with who? Creator heart. I'm going to love it, and I'm going to give that piece back to myself, because clearly I've been keeping it separate. It's been something that frustrates me so much. And I took the ball of judgment that I had of that scenario, and I gently placed it right inside my heart. I was like, it sank right in. I could feel it. I could actually feel it like filling up my body. It was like I could take a big, huge breath that I never had before. And I went back, I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna check in with that feeling again. And I went back to try to find that frustration and that anger, and do you think, to my surprise, that I could find it again? It was nowhere to be found. I couldn't even find anything that remotely was close to the frustration I felt less than 5 minutes before that. It was gone completely. And I'm like, okay, what's just happened here? So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try to get to something else. Like, now I'm getting excited. I'm thinking, I just took something that I've been frustrated with for 10 years with someone, and I made it disappear like that. How is that even possible? I'm like, is that because of the whole like loving it with the creator heart, God's heart? Is that what that's from? I'm gonna try it again. So I found something else that irritated me. I retraced my steps. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hold out my hand. I didn't want to change anything. Put the frustration of the idea of what was happening in my hand, and then ask myself, am I that? Am I? Whatever that issue was. And then I realized, and it's a moment of realization. You're like, no, I'm not that. That's a good thing. And so then I placed the judgment right back in my heart. I'm like, I'm gonna love it with God's heart. That's what I was told, that's my task, and it did. And those emotions disappeared. Now, that in the moment was like a crazy experience, because those things weren't small things that I chose. Those were big, life-altering, life-changing things, because for me, they were almost deal breakers for friendships, relationships. They were really, really frustrating. And so I now discovered what my first task was to love with God's heart, or love with creator heart, and understand that better. And then I saw the oneness in everything, and then I discovered that the mere issue can be fixed. You don't just have to see that you're recognizing in someone else there's something that frustrates you or angers. You don't have to see that and go, oh my God, clearly that's me. Now you have a tool to actually change that, and that's life-changing. So then I move about my world, and I try it on other people, and it works just the same. I walk them through the same process. We choose the same things that change their life, the same things that really stop you from choosing more of you. Clear them and gift them back to yourselves, and free up all the space that was taking up. So months go by, and I find myself in a frustrating spot again. I'm thinking, well, something else got to give, because I kind of went through that one. That's cool, but I still feel like I'm a chronic learner, if that's even a word. I love growing. I love expanding. I love learning more things and tools and everything else. And so I decided I was gonna sit with myself again and just sit there and ask the question, okay, what next? Okay, so you told me that was my first task. Well, that must mean there's more. So come on, man, bring it on. Whatever it is, like, just whatever, show it to me or bring it to me. I didn't know what to ask. I just like you all probably in your lives get to that point where you're like, geez, somebody please just tell me how to do this, right? That frustrating moment of you think there's no one else that you can talk to. You don't want to call someone because you feel stupid, or you feel like it's not important enough. And yet you're willing to scream it out to the air in front of you, which is actually something. It's you, it's the universe, it's the all-knowing. It's just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so in pops another task. I'm sitting, I've got my eyes closed, I'm right back where I took myself mentally, right back where I was before, sitting on a chair, waiting, and all of a sudden, the creator shows up again. And I was like, okay, like here we go, ready to go. And he says, now, I want you to see with creator eyes. I'm like, okay. I almost thought I was done because I discovered something so cool. But I'm never done in my world. I'm always wanting to learn, right? There's nothing left for me. It's always keep going. So I'm like, okay. So I come out of my sitting in silence or meditation, whatever you want to call it. And I know I I don't know what to expect now. I figured it out with the heart thing, and that was just kind of a surprise to me. So I guess it's going to be a surprise with the scene. So a few days later, I regularly sit in silence because I find it's the only place that keeps me calm. And I go about my day and I can keep going, being aware of all the things I'm aware of, but it's the only thing that I have that's regular in my world. And I sit again and I discover that I have a lot of fears. Sometimes it just became an awareness, like I have a lot of fears. I have fears of my son dying. There's no reason why I could have that fear or should have that fear. I don't know where it came from, but he gets a headache and all of a sudden I'm traumatized. It's one of those things you can't go through. So there's always messages in those fears. I have fears of leaving the stove on. I have fears of not locking the door. I have fears of maybe taking the wrong route to work. I have these weird, to me, seemingly irrational fears. And they all started to show up in one moment, like almost overwhelming me with all the fears that I had. A fear of getting sick, a fear of other people getting sick. All of a sudden, I have all these fears. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna mess around because I don't like these fears and I don't know what to do with them, so I'm going to make a demand now. Like, if I'm in charge, which I feel like I am, and which I've been told that we are all in charge, and those answers are within, then I'm gonna use my own power to make these fears disappear. So I'm laying there and I put out my hands in a bubble, just like with the hand, and I go, okay, all the fears I have, I want you to gently leave my body and go into this ball. And I sat there, and all of a sudden my hands started to get bigger, and they started to feel heavy. I was like, ooh, this must be working, right? Something's happening because I'm not doing this and it's just sort of happening. And when I thought it was like so big and so full, but maybe not yet done, I go, and now I'm just going to send this off into the universe, what I would love it to transform into love, because that's what I would give somebody, and I'm not going to give them fear. I'm going to return it to the sender that maybe sent it to me, or where I bought it from, or where I heard it from, or the TV show I learned it from, or the whatever place it came from, these irrational fears, whatever lifetime, whatever we think of. I'm going to send it off, and I watched it wash through, turn into love, and go back where it came from and be released from me. And then I felt lighter. Bless you. And what happened was that light feeling, that spacious feeling of just doing that in my own mind, in my own words, with my own creativity. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna go through my day now. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know why I did that. I don't know where it came from, but I'm just gonna keep going. And so, probably about 7 or 8 hours later, when I was ready to go to bed, I crawled into bed, and it's darker than dark in my room, and everyone have children? Yeah? Do you know when your child walked into the room and you instantly woke up, and it didn't matter how deep a sleep you were in, you just instantly woke up? I was laying in bed, and I instantly woke up, and I saw what I thought was my son, like walking in the room, standing at the end of my bed, and I'm looking at him. But it's so dark, but I could see him. And then I see him like look down at me like this. And then stand back up. And when he stood up, all of a sudden he went into full color. And I was like, okay, that's not my son. That's not my son. That's some child standing at the thing. Okay. But I had complete peace. Standing at the end of my bed. The little boy. Sandy brown hair, pale skin, little t-shirt, little shorts, just standing there looking at me. And so we had a little, moment, and I looked at my husband, and yep, he's breathing, and I'm looking outside, and yeah, it's raining, and now I can hear it raining, and I look back, and he's still standing there. And I go, I am seeing this. How funny. A, what you see with creator eyes, and B, I know for a fact that was a fear, because I always said, with all the things I know, I don't ever want to see anything. I was afraid to see what I'm seeing. I didn't know what I was going to see. Here, I release all those fears, and that same very day, a little boy shows up at the end of my bed. So we have a little conversation, and he was just looking to go home. So I just, whatever came through, I just talked to him, and then poof, off he went with a big hug from me, and there he goes, all happy. So I want to wake up my husband and tell him, but I'm thinking, no, he'll probably, be mad because I woke him up in the middle of the night. So I wait till the morning and I wake him up and tell him, he's like, oh, why did you wake me up? I'm like, typical, right? So as I go on now about my days, and this didn't happen that long ago. I mean, we're talking maybe a month ago, if that. My capacity has grown to not just see, it's to know where your truth lies. Where I can ask you a question and know whether you're lying to yourself or not about the things in your world. Right? Not only am I feeling with my heart and seeing with my eyes and my knowing, I'm able to know whether you're lying to you. Isn't that strange? So, what I know 100% for sure is that every answer you've ever wanted to know about the world, the universes, the things you can't see, and everything about your world, your reality that you create, which is different from every single person on the planet, is all inside. Every answer. There isn't one that isn't there. It's a matter of your willingness to trust you. Right? It's almost like when you have children and you know that you do anything, you would die for that child because you are so in love with it and you so want to protect it and you brought it into this world. If you took that type of all-out capacity to take care of someone, it most certainly should be with you. And knowing that you can do that for another being should give you the clear indication that you can do it for you. Who better to have your back than you? So there's a few little tools I'd like you to try if you want. Fun little exercises that I practice with friends and when I teach small groups. And that's why I gave you all a piece of paper and there's some pens on the table. And I just want you to just in point form simply write down any worries that you have right now in this very moment. Any worries. Anything that you feel like you should be worrying about, or a fear that you should be fearing, something that's current and relevant to you right now. Just jot down maybe 5 or 10, I don't know, whatever you can get down in a short period of time, if you have any. And believe me, there's nothing too simple. I mean, believe me, the fact that I go back to check to make sure I close the garage door twice, while driving out and then driving back, there's not, there's no silly thing. I've done it a million times. I just no longer judge myself for it. And no one else is going to read this but you, so just jot them down, and then I want you to flip the page over when you're done. What you're doing, you're basically just freeing yourself in this very moment from any of those worries. So take the thought and the worries right out of your head and out of your mind and out of your field, put them on the paper and leave them there. So you'll never lose them if you don't want to get rid of your fears or your worries. You won't lose them, they're going to be on the paper. Unless you want to, that's a whole different story. Anyone have no worries at all?
But I'm worried about the people that are trying to take your glasses and working with them all the time. You want me to write that down?
I think you should. Okay. If you're worried about it, it's definitely a worry.
Well, no, I'm not worried about it.
If you are worried about them, that's your worry. Yes, there is a difference.
Yeah.
You can perceive other people's issues that seem like something that should be worried about, but you only notice them because you don't have them. It's like worrying about a brother that has no money. You have money, they have no money, so you worry about them not having money. It's because you have something that you feel, they don't have. Everybody got their stuff written down? Now I want you to flip the page over so that we don't see that part of it. And I want you to write down 3 things you love about your life. 3 things you absolutely love about your life. And that can include just waking up in the morning. The way the sun comes through the window when you wake up, and it's there. It shows up for you. Does anybody have a worry that really stands out for them? Something that kind of interrupts their work, their daily life on a regular basis? You? Would you be willing to share?
Sure. The health of my brother, mental health and physical health.
Can you elaborate a little?
I'm not sure if he's moving into dementia or such a deep depression that he's not very functional and needs a lot of care and attention beyond what he can give himself.
Okay. So if you were to put that into something he's choosing, a statement, what would that be?
From his perspective,
Something you see, from your perspective, if he were choosing this, what would he be choosing?
choosing to live in a fog.
So I want you to hold your hand up like this. And I want you to hold in your hand the living in a fog. Okay, can you feel it? It's got quite a bit of weight to it. This is something you worry about regularly. And I want you to ask yourself, am I that? Am I? Do I choose to live in a fog? I want you to tell me how you feel about that. Do you live in a fog? Is that a choice that you make regularly?
I don't believe so.
Do you know that you don't choose that? You like to see things, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and you like to know
yes,
and understand.
yes.
So I want you to take that, and I want you to gently place it right in your heart space. Say the words, am I that? Am I? And know that you're not. And I want you to place it right in your heart space. Just take your hand and feel it go right in. Does anybody else feel that? And right through. And receive back that judgment that you have of you. Now I want you to hold out your hand again. And I want you to find in your mind, in your world, in your space, the feeling of living in a fog. Can you find it? How you felt about him, the worry that you felt. Has it lightened?
Yes.
Significantly? Yeah. How much so? Can you even find it? You're spending a lot of time looking, it's not in there, right? So when you now think about your brother, you can send him all the love he needs, instead of judging yourself for the choices he is making, because he is choosing for his body, not yours. And so you're free. Imagine how much space you just created for you and your reality that you create by receiving that big chunk of you back. Doesn't mean you don't love him, right?
Right.
Yeah. Congratulations. You're welcome. That's as easy as it is to free yourself and know the truth about you. Allow yourself to know, right? You truly feel different. Yeah. Yeah. It's very, I say it's easy, and I don't say it with disrespect. It's easy because it is. You have to be willing to be free. Free of any emotions that really stop your world from moving forward, because your body is going to age anyway, right? You're traveling through your world anyway. So choosing to know the things inside you that you know, which is everything, will set you free. There's some days where I realize that the choices that I made don't work for me. I'm choosing it because I heard it somewhere. And how I know is because it's a struggle to do it. Being vegetarian, I love it. But I started buying all these points of view about being vegetarian and how it's going to save my life and it'll keep me younger. And then I started worrying about organic things and pesticides and herbicides. Then I couldn't breathe anymore. Why? Because now I'm worried about the pesticides in the air, and it got worse and worse and worse. To the point where I couldn't even drink water because my tongue would itch. The only reason that is because I started deciding things that weren't true for me. And so the only way to free myself was to actually recognize that I chose those things, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I'm unchoosing that right now, right? So sometimes it's just a choice, and other times it takes really sitting with the energy that you have, sitting with the judgment you have of yourself, and knowing what's true for you. And those answers are there, right? So why I had you write those things down about all the worries that you've had is because I want you to really take those worries and I want you to place them up to your heart, and I want you to receive them all back. All those worries, I want you to take them in, not as a worry that's going outward, but as love coming in. I want you to receive them all. Everywhere that you've had any worries at all, any fears, I want you to receive them back. Stop projecting outward at those fears and those worries, making them greater than what you know is true. That you are the decider of your world. And you, being the best you can possibly be, is the gift you give everyone in your world. Worrying about someone encapsulates them in the worry. And now they have to be that for you. They can never get out of that space if you are holding them there. So free you from the worry, and now you free them. Do you see how that works? Does anybody have a question about what I just said? Free yourself and you'll free everyone that you worry about and everything that you worry about from being solidified in that space. Right? And so that absolutely concludes my talk today. All the reasons and the things that you absolutely love about your life, focus on those things, right? Hold those things close. Be grateful for those things and know those things are there because you want them to be, because you give it that energy. You love that, so you can change the worries and the fears in your world very quickly. I haven't been doing any sessions as of lately because I've been creating a new program. It's more of a little upper level program. It's a month long. It's 5 sessions. It's got a bunch of different things, and you have to fill out an application in order to make sure that it's a right fit for the right people. If you're interested in that, or if you know somebody who might be interested in that program, it's called Truth Spotting. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it and tell you how you can apply or give that information to someone else to apply. The other thing is with this group here, if anyone wanted just a one-on-one session for an hour to work through any issues that you have, I will open up my schedule for that for you. Okay, I will take a week or 2 weeks and just open up a bunch of space and go through it, because I think it's not what you know that you need to share, it's that you know. Okay, so if you know that your capacity can overcome everything, then that's what I want you to know. That's what I feel is most important. Not seeing things or feeling things or being whatever those things are. It's your capacity to move through the world, because as you be that, then though you free others from being encapsulated in any fears that you had, any worries you had, and gives them a chance to be that too. And that's how our vibration gets raised, right? Worry is a low vibration, fear is a low vibration, guilt is a low vibration, shame is the lowest vibration. All those vibrations hold us all in a lower vibration, because we're all balancing each other out, right? Higher vibrations, lower vibrations, we meet somewhere in the middle. What if you freed yourself from those things and everyone's vibration raised, what happens to the rest of the people around us? They start all of a sudden raising up too. And that's how the planet gets changed, right? Little tiny bits at a time, but we're all in that space where we have the capacity to choose that. And it is a choice. We all have the choice. You don't have to. Stay right where you're at if you want to, right? But do what feels good. What excites you? What makes you dance? At the beginning of a talk, do the things that make you joyful. And that alone, that raises your vibration too. Sometimes it shakes the crap out of the bottom, all those little fears that you forgot about. It's like a sand sifter, right? Dance around the house. Do something that makes you joyful. If anyone has any questions, I would be happy to oblige. If you have any comments or anything else, and if you're interested in talking to me about some space or scheduling some time, I'll be right here for you. Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody have a question for Wendy? I know that's a lot of information. Oh yeah, they want to know where you're at.
I live in LaSalle, but I do sessions via Skype. And if you're close enough, if you want to do one-on-one, I just invite you to my house.
And this is Wendy's mom over here, Bernice.